Imagine living 70, 80 or 90 years of quality health. What's the key word there?
Quality.
Quality, thank you. Imagine that type of life where you're not dependent upon any medication or surgery just to be able to get up and function in the morning. Who wants that? We all do, right? Now imagine a predictable level of health in the next 10, 20 or 30 years, where you'll know exactly what you'll be doing, full of energy, vitality, basically doing whatever you want, whenever you want. Whether that be being an active mum or dad, traveling the world, hopefully, or maybe it's just something as simple as being able to pick up your grandkids or reverse the car without your neck locking or jamming up, or be able to sit at the PC without your neck just screaming at you that it's in pain. Or maybe you don't have to try literally 100 different pillows because your neck keeps waking you up in the middle of the night or you just can't get comfortable. It's basically about quality of life that we want to get back. Now in the next hour or so, you're going to discover some of the most powerful, effective, natural ways of getting healthy and staying healthy. I'm going to share with you some information that's going to help you understand how you can have more energy, become pain-free, reduce sickness, and dramatically reduce your chance of ever having to have surgery or developing a chronic illness. We all want that, right? Okay? You've probably all heard of tech neck before, right? How many of you have not heard of tech neck? Quick hands up. Okay, so most people have. It's pretty much the scourge of modern day society now because it is brutal to your spines. You've probably all heard the saying, sitting is the new smoking. Yes, no? Well, screens are the new crack. And this is the reality, is that because of the kind of postural positions we end up finding ourselves in when we're on these devices, for many of us, hours and hours a day. And it can lead to chronic neck problems, nerve problems, and herniated discs, bulging discs, and many, many other health issues. You're probably all coming in tonight because you've got probably one or two of these, maybe more of them. Neck pain, stiffness, tightness, lost range of motion, degenerative damage or arthritis, popping and cracking, upper extremity issues, meaning problems in the arms or shoulders, or loss of grip strength in the hands, things like that, or headaches. How many of you have got one of those? Quick hands up. Most of the room. Okay, how many of you got them all? Okay, all right. So it's not all because we were all on devices for so many years. Some of you can appreciate that might not be the reason why. But unfortunately, modern life is creating this problem, and a lot of it is because of the kind of postural habits we get into on a daily basis. So if it's not looking at a screen, it's looking at a book for a long period of time, or even just sitting, studying at a desk, or repetitive bending, lifting, or even things like daily housework over time can start to create problems like this. And the Body Signals program, which is essentially what you've come to tonight. And the reason why we call it Body Signals is because when you get neck pain or some issue with your neck, a symptom of some sort, it's essentially your body screaming out to you, trying to tell you something's wrong. Are you listening? Is really what we should be thinking about. Because the neck pain is really what is above the water, is what you can feel and notice. But the reason why you have the neck pain is what's under the water. And that's our job to find out what that is. And we're going to do some deep dives into what could be causing your neck pain. Because it's all fine and well to just try and treat symptoms, but if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, what do you think is going to happen to your problem? It's just going to come back, and normally it comes back with interest. Believe me, I know that from previous clinical experience. Right? A lot of the stuff just doesn't work, it's just temporary relief, and then it comes back with a vengeance. So we have to get to the root cause of issues. Now, for many people, the response is, well, they just ignore it and hope it's going to go away. Those are probably the 5 most famous words in healthcare. I hope it goes away. And it just doesn't happen, right? As people get older, do they normally get better or worse? Worse, absolutely. Almost always. Some people don't just ignore it, but they choose to cover it up in terms of taking medications, painkillers, Nurofen, paracetamol, cocodamol. I mean, the list gets bigger and bigger, and the list of side effects gets worse and worse and worse. The problem is again, all those medications, again, they're just suppressing symptoms. They're not getting to the root cause. You know, are we getting neck pain because of a lack of paracetamol? No, right? So why is our answer to neck pain is take some paracetamol? Because it gets rid of the pain. But what do you think that's teaching us at a subconscious level? As long as we're getting rid of the pain, we're dealing with the problem. But are we really dealing with the problem? We're not. All right? That pain or that symptom that you're experiencing is just like a fire alarm. It's your body trying to tell you something's wrong, stop, get this fixed, get this addressed. Now, if the fire alarm in this building went off, how many of you would disconnect the fire alarm? I know it seems silly and ridiculous, but that's what we do when we take the paracetamol. So let's imagine the fire alarm is going off because there's a fire taking off in the back kitchen there. What do you think is going to happen to the fire if we just disconnect the fire alarm? It's going to keep going, and when a fire keeps going, what tends to happen?
Burns down, whatever.
It gets bigger, right? And then eventually burns down whatever. So your problem, by just suppressing it with painkillers, it's not just not addressing the problem, it's actually allowing the problem to get bigger, right? And when your house burns down, that's your body in this analogy, it's not a good outcome for your well-being and quality of life. Okay, so let's get to the root cause. Now, when you look at an illness-wellness continuum, essentially all of us are on this. We're either moving in this direction or we're moving in this direction. None of us are static. So you're either going that way or you are going that way. And you know you're going this way because you're going to start to develop more and more of these kind of signs and symptoms. So what is a sign? A sign is something that you can't necessarily feel, but it's there. So for example, do you know if you have high blood pressure or not? Yes or no? Okay, let's assume you've never had a blood pressure test before. Can you feel if you've got high blood pressure or not? Not normally, unless it's really high, and then you might be getting headaches or something, right? Okay, so high blood pressure would be an example of a sign. A symptom would be, okay, now you're getting headaches because of that high blood pressure. So you now know it's getting worse. Make sense? Okay, so the same with your neck. You know, you might not have any pain at all, but you're heading in this direction. You might already be developing arthritis in the neck, but you actually have no symptom or ill feeling. But if you were to X-ray your neck, you'd probably see degenerative damage there. So that would be an example of a sign, all right? And obviously, once we're now experiencing neck pain, headaches, clicking, popping, cracking, whatever it is, muscle spasm, now we're already into this zone here. And if that's allowed to continue, obviously, things just get worse and worse. We really need to start heading in this direction, and the best way and the first way that you're going to do that is by just starting to understand what your problem is. It's what we call awareness. And you're going to start to learn how to manage it and how to correct it where possible. And that's what tonight is going to be all about. I think the problem we have today is that we're judging our health very much on how we look or feel, not so much on how we are functioning. And it's a natural phenomenon, because if I go to this slide here, when you look at your nervous system, there's really three components to your nervous system. The motor nervous system, so the part that creates movement in your body. The sensory nervous system, the part that you can feel. And then the autonomic nervous system, the part that is all happening behind the scenes without your control. So you don't know that your liver right now is producing enzymes to help digest your meal. So that would be an example of an autonomic nervous system function. Where you can tell yourself, get up and walk. That's the motor nervous system. The sensory nervous system is what you're feeling. Take a guess at how much of your nervous system is concerned with this. Any wild guesses? 10%. Dead on, well done. All right, so, and that's at maximum. And we probably think it's not even as much as that. So you could theoretically be 90% damaged and you're not going to necessarily feel it. All right, theoretically. The bottom line is that a lot can be going wrong before you even sense or feel anything happening. And this is a big issue because this is why so many of us have based our definition of health on how we look or feel instead of how we're functioning. Let me give you an example. How many of you have heard of a person who seemed perfectly healthy one day and literally the next day they dropped dead of a heart attack? Happens quite often, right? Okay. Did that person develop heart disease in just 12 hours? No. It took more like 20 or 30 years. Could they feel their arteries slowly clogging up with atherosclerosis? No. In fact, normally the first sign of atherosclerosis is the first heart attack or stroke. How about cancer? How many of you know of someone who seemed perfectly healthy and they just went in for a routine scan and they were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer? Again, it happens more than we realize. And within 2 years, they did. So judging our health and how we look or feel, good idea or bad idea? Bad, okay? So the question we're going to be thinking, well, why are we doing that? Why are we basing our health really on symptoms and how we feel? And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first being, the current health system that we have is really sick care, it's not health care. Right? It's reactive, it's not proactive. But also, you market it to death with drug adverts. And suppressing symptoms makes a lot of money. Getting to the root cause of problems doesn't normally make so much money. So it doesn't get focused in on. Right? It's not because it can't be done. Absolutely it can be done. I'm going to show you tonight how we can fix these kind of problems long term. Okay. Many people then end up in this situation where as they're aging, they kind of just assume that they're developing all these problems because they're getting old. And when you think of a 90-year-old, just quick hands up here, how many of you would like to live to 90 years old or older? Quick hands up. So it's normally about half the audience. There's no right or wrong answer, by the way. Okay. So yeah, absolutely. Depends on how healthy you are. So what are the main reasons why a lot of people don't want to live to 90 years old or older? Just shout them out. Maybe they're in chronic pain. Absolutely. What else?
Quality of life.
The quality of life is miserable. Be more specific. What do you think about? What kind of disease problems and health problems do you think of when you think of a 90 or 95-year-old? Maybe they got dementia or Alzheimer's, so they can't even recognize their family members. What else? Lack of mobility, so maybe they're literally stuck in a wheelchair, or even worse, they're stuck in bed. In fact, some of them can't even go to the loo on their own without a nurse literally doing everything for them. Maybe they're walking around with a colon bag because they've had colon cancer or ulcerative colitis, and now literally their life is walking around with a bag of you-know-what. That's their life. So judging our health and how we look or feel, not a good idea. When do you think is the best time to start to get healthy? Now. Okay, absolutely. Would you agree? Now is probably the best time to start to get healthy. All right. When we can still do something about it before it's too late. So I want to come up with a better premise of really what we should be thinking about when we're thinking about health and how we get healthier. Firstly, healthy is normal. Believe it or not, unless you're in the 5% of the population who has a true genetic problem, for the rest of us 95% of people, healthy is normal. It is your default, your natural factory setting, so to speak. If you simply give the body what it needs and you remove what it doesn't need. It's just that we have so many unhealthy people now that we now think getting unhealthy is normal. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. If you never got sick, you would naturally think, wow, like, that's amazing. You're weird. But that's really how it should be. But But our environment now is so toxic and deficient in terms of how we eat, move, and think, and the state of our nervous systems, that our bodies have no hope of actually staying healthy unless we're really intentional about protecting how we eat, move, and think, and protecting the state of our nervous system. Those are what we call the 4 fundamental pillars of how to stay healthy and well. And that includes free from neck pain. All right? Because you have neck pain because essentially you have a health problem. It is not just a neck problem. It is a health problem. And I'm going to help you understand why that is the case. It's not just a musculoskeletal issue. It's a significant health issue. Healthy is normal. Your body is smart. Would you agree it's clever that if there's something wrong, it should produce symptoms to let you know something's wrong? Yes? Absolutely. Okay? It's good that your body has a fire alarm. Ask those people with diabetes and then they can't feel their hands and their feet. What happens? They keep burning themselves because they have no warning signal to tell them if something is actually causing damage. Your nervous system is the master system. It controls everything, right? Absolutely everything, right? Even controls your cardiovascular system, your immune system, your digestive system. It controls everything. And where do you think your nervous system is found in? Your skull and your spine, right? Your spine is your suit of armor that protects the nervous system. So if the spine is all out of alignment and your posture is all out of whack, how well is your nervous system going to work? Not great, right? And I can tell you right now, if you've got neck problems, I can tell you your spine is not well aligned. And it's not just causing you pain. It's potentially causing a lot of stress to your nervous system. And remember, what does your nervous system control? Everything. So you might not just be sitting with degeneration in your neck. It could also be causing a whole other host of health problems, which we're going to cover in a few minutes. Would you agree modern life is unnaturally stressful? Absolutely. I mean, it's just a rat race now. And not just in terms of emotions, but physically, would you agree that it's stressful? So yes, we might not be walking 10 miles a day like a hunter-gatherer would, but the irony is that's actually very good for your spine. But sitting 10 hours in front of a PC, do you think that's good for your spine? No, and yet so many of the working world are involved in things like that. Okay, and would you agree that we're probably exposed to more chemical toxins and stresses now than ever before? Yes. Absolutely. So we've got a lot of physical, chemical, and emotional stress. It's what we call the 3 T's: traumas, toxins, and thoughts. We're going to break some of this down a little bit. So let's talk about traumas first. Macro trauma. The obvious things like slips, falls, car accidents, etc. What happens here is when you have trauma to the spine, it can literally jar the spine out of its normal alignment. Okay, and that can now start to put pressure on the spinal cord and the nerves. But to be honest, this is really the big problem, is how much time we're spending on devices, whether it be laptops, iPads, PCs, or just you sitting in your armchair reading a book like this for several hours, right? So it doesn't have to be something digital. It's just that bad postural habit. On average, people in the UK sit for more than 10 hours a day. That's an average. When you calculate everything at home and everything at work, on average it's about 10 hours a day. Right? A typical hunter-gatherer, which is genetically what we are, right, sits about 2 hours a day. So it's a big problem. Our environment, which is expecting an environment that involves a lot of activity, is only getting very limited movement because of how much time we're sitting. And this creates huge stresses on the spine. And typically what happens is our head starts to go forward. Right? So it's what we call a forward head posture. And as the head starts to go forwards, the head, which should only weigh about 12 pounds, when it starts to move about an inch, starts to feel like it's weighing 32 pounds just because it's moved an inch forward. How many of you have ever held a bowling ball close to your chest? It's reasonably easy to hold, right? If you hold it out here, does it feel heavier? Yeah. Yes. Okay, now your head weighs about the same as a bowling ball. So as soon as it starts to come forward like that, what do you think it's doing to the spine here? Putting huge stresses on it. And what's inside your spine? Your nervous system, your spinal cord, okay? Which is the gateway of communication that your brain is having to send all its messages to the rest of the body. It's now being put under significant stresses. And obviously, as time goes on, it just gets worse and worse and more stress. And when this starts to happen, when the spine starts to move more and more out of its normal alignment, you start to also then get soft tissue damage, inflammation and nerve irritation, muscle spasm, lost imbibition, which basically means loss of the pumping action on the disc, which keeps it nice and healthy. So the disc starts to degenerate. Some of you may have heard of the expression or the term degenerative disc disease. Okay, well, that's why the spine basically has stopped moving. When joints stop moving, the joints degenerate. All right, the discs need movement to stay healthy. That's how it pumps blood around the area. You then get joint fixation. Joints don't move properly anymore. And this, unfortunately, all creates elevated stress hormones. So simply, when your spine stops moving, it creates huge amounts of stress up through to the brain. Now your brain, when it gets exposed to a lot of stress, moves the whole nervous system in what we call the fight or flight state, as opposed to the healing repair state. Your nervous system can be in two states, either the fight-flight state or the healing repair state. The fight-flight state is called the sympathetic nervous system. The healing repair state is referred to as the parasympathetic nervous system. Have any of you heard those terms before? All right. All you need to know is your body cannot be in both at the same time. So you're either in fight or flight, you're in survival mode, okay, because you've got a lot of stress being fired up through to the brain, or you're in healing repair mode. And when your spine is poorly aligned, it's constantly firing off stress hormones to the brain, so it keeps your brain stuck and the nervous system stuck into that fight-flight mode, which means you cannot heal and repair. And this is the problem, is healthcare is very easy. If you look at rate of breakdown versus rate of repair, you start to get sick when rate of repair starts to slump. Now rate of breakdown is greater than rate of repair. You start to heal when your rate of repair increases. Now you're repairing faster than you're breaking down. Now you start to get healthy and well. So what we've got to do is simply get your nervous system in that healing repair mode. The problem is as long as you've got joints that are stuck and not moving properly, that's constantly keeping your brain in the fight-flight mode, which means A, you're going to have a stiff sore neck, but B, your body is now breaking down. So it affects everything in your body, not just your spine and your joints. It's going to mean that your heart is going to be breaking down. Your liver is going to be breaking down. Your digestive system is going to be breaking down. Does that make sense? Okay. Blood pressure goes up. Heart rate goes up. Muscle tone goes up, which is why when you're stressed, your muscles feel tense. Yes, no? Yes. Okay. Your digestion is down-regulated when you get stressed. Your body, just imagine if you came across a lion, do you think your body is interested in being able to digest food when you literally are about to be mauled by a lion? Do you think it's clever that your body down-regulates your digestive system capabilities so that you can free up more energy to maybe either run or fight the lion? Probably the former. Okay? Would you agree? Yes. So your body doesn't care about digestion when the nervous system is stressed, which is why so many of you are struggling with things like IBS. Not just with neck problems. Reproduction. I think we can probably also agree that reproduction is probably not a top priority when you're about to be mauled by a lion. Yes? No? So your body also is not going to be interested in anything to do with reproduction, which often in women can manifest in things like abnormal menstrual cycles, heavy bleeding, difficulty falling pregnant, recurrent miscarriages, in men, infertility, and so on. Serotonin levels. You get depressed. So that stiff popping neck that's achy is actually contributing towards your depression and your low mood because of how much stress it's creating to the brain. Sensory systems go up. So when your body is stressed, the irony is it increases your sensitization to pain. So you're going to literally feel more pain because your body's trying to make you aware of threats, because it knows you're in a constantly threatened environment. So it's a clever adaptation. It's trying to keep you aware of possible threats. And so you're going to feel pain when you shouldn't be feeling pain. And it's real pain. All right? That's the thing. It's not just imaginary pain. It's real pain. Fear, anxiety goes up. Insulin sensitivity. Blood sugar levels go up. So what does that sound like? Diabetes. All right? Who would have thought your stiff, achy neck could contribute to diabetes? Who would have thought that? This is how the body is all connected. And it's all because the nervous system is the common thread here. Your spine, which is in poor shape, is wrecking your nervous system, which in turn is influencing all these other things. Your cholesterol profile starts to change. So when you're stressed, your body increases its clotting factors and clotting capabilities. What does that sound like to you? Heart disease? Stroke? Absolutely. An immune response. You see, when you're about to be mauled by a lion, your body doesn't care about your immune system. So it down-regulates your immune system as well. So constant stress being fired up through stiff, achy joints in the neck is contributing even to your immune system being suppressed. Does that make sense? Okay. Who thinks now having a strong immune system is probably quite helpful? Absolutely. Okay. But also what it does is these subluxations, these areas of the spine that are poorly aligned, that are not moving properly, creates nerve irritation. Let me show you something here. So this is your spine here. Your brain is constantly sending messages down through the spinal cord, out through all these nerves to every cell, tissue and organ in your body. Your body in turn then sends messages back via these nerves, back up the spinal cord, back up to the brain to tell the brain what's going on. So there's this constant communication between brain, body and brain. And if that's flowing really well, we get to be healthy, our body functions well, it heals and repairs well, and we have normal healthy metabolism. Now, if I just cut this nerve here to the heart, what do you think would happen to the heart? It would stop. Now, is that fact or theory? Fact. Okay. Now, if I create enough irritation of the nerves here, because perhaps you've got subluxations here, because you've been on your iPhone like this for many years now, for 2 hours a day, do you think it might now start to affect how well the heart's working? Because it's irritating the nerve? Yes. So it's quite common for people to experience things like palpitations, or blood pressure problems, or even heart conditions. The nerves that supply the lungs here, often people can start to experience things like asthma, difficulty breathing, or shortness of breath. Let's go back to the neck though. So often the nerves that are coming out at the neck level here, they're the ones that go supply things like the thyroid. Very common when people have neck problems, they also have thyroid problems as well. Or they have sinus issues because the nerves at the top here have a huge influence on ears, eyes, nose, and face. Headaches. How many of you got headaches or get them regularly? One of the most common causes of headaches is because of subluxations up in the top of the neck here, because the nerves that come out of here go up, round, over the head, even to behind the eyes. But also, spinal joints that are not moving well properly here can even affect the vascular flow. And that can even contribute towards migraines and things like that as well. We also now understand that subluxations up here can even contribute towards abnormal blood flow to parts of the brain, even leading to things like MS, multiple sclerosis. All right? Now we know that's also an autoimmune issue as well, but you get eddy currents developing within the cerebral hemisphere blood supply, and we now understand that it could be even coming from the neck, because the neck is not aligned and moving properly. Very common, ring in the ears. How many people here get ring in the ears? Very common. Because of subluxations up here, it affects the brain's ability to interpret audio information coming through your ears. Here's why. So if you've been nodding off, now's the time to wake up, because I'm going to show you something that in the science world we've only just understood really in the last 7 years. I want you to think of your spine like a generator and the front part of the brain is like a battery. The better your spine moves, the better the battery, the front part of the brain works. The worse the spine moves, the front part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, starts to shut down, just like a battery would go flat. So when this part of the brain starts to go flat, 5 key areas typically are affected. The first being the autonomic nervous system, which is all your organs, which is why so many people can experience things like palpitations, blood pressure problems, digestive system issues, and. But it also controls immune system. So it's another way that the immune system can be affected. Also, when the spine's not moving properly, this part of the brain, which controls hormones, hormone regulation then can be adversely affected, affecting things like mood, sleep, and even things like fertility. It also controls higher cognitive functions, so things like focus, concentration, memory, and learning. So it can even increase your susceptibility to things like dementia and Alzheimer's. We just heard earlier on today, when we think of a 90-year-old, that's one of the most common things or common worries that people have is, are they going to start to lose their mental faculties? And unfortunately, when the spine stops moving, it's one of the biggest risk factors to your brain shutting down. You can do 100 Sudokus every day, but if your neck stops moving, that part of the brain is going to shut down. And you cannot then do these kind of higher functioning exercises or things that your body needs to be able to do. We mistakenly think it's just because people are getting old. It's not because they're getting old. It's because their spines have stopped moving. So the front part of the brain is shutting down just like a battery goes flat. Does that make sense? Okay. That's why you can have a 90-year-old who's still playing golf, but I bet you he's moving well. But you can have a 40 or 50-year-old who's barely moving and is rigid, and he's wondering why his short-term memory is shot. And he can't remember anything that his wife asked him to buy from the shops, except the first thing and the last thing, right? And everything in between is forgotten. Okay. This also controls inflammation, which is very relevant to you if you have pain. Because if your spine is not moving, not only is that area of the spine probably going to cause you pain, because it's stuck, it's jammed, and muscle spasm is occurring, but it also causes this part of the brain to now not be able to regulate inflammation. And when your brain cannot regulate inflammation, you become too inflamed. So you're going to experience more pain, purely because your spine's not moving well. So even your low back, that might not be moving well, but you have no symptoms with your low back, is contributing towards this, not regulating inflammation properly, is now making your neck worse. Does that make sense? Okay. And obviously vice versa. Many people can have chronic back problems purely because of what's going on in their neck. All right, so subluxations are a massive problem. Just think of them as areas of the spine that are not moving properly and are interfering with the nerves and are causing this part of the brain to shut down. Okay, but also upper extremity issues can often start to develop because all these nerves that come out of the base of the neck, I don't have a picture here because it's focusing really on the organs, but all these nerves that come out of the base of the neck, they all go and supply the shoulder, arms, and hands. So if you start to get subluxation problems in the neck, you're likely to get more and more nerve irritation in that area, affecting things like grip strength, arm power, numbness, tingling, pins and needles in the hands, etc. Okay? Even things like Raynaud's phenomenon. How many people get the white finger? Yes, okay, can commonly be associated and linked with subluxations in the neck. Right, or tennis elbow, shoulder problems, okay? Frozen shoulder, how many people have you heard of who get frozen shoulder? And they all think it's a problem here. Yes, that's where the symptom is, but it's normally always because there's an issue in the neck that's caused the nerves to the shoulder to shut down properly. And remember, organs need two things to function. They need good blood supply and good nerve supply. And we tend to forget about the nerve supply. We just kind of hope that the body's always going to just produce it. But if the neck is deteriorating, the nerve supply to the shoulder and the arm will deteriorate as well. And you're now more susceptible to developing problems in those areas. So when you do get any wear and tear there, they're just not healing up. So things like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, wrist problems, carpal tunnel, many others. So this is an X-ray. So imagine the person's facing that way. Right? Now you should have a nice curve in the neck that arcs backwards like that. It's often the opposite direction to what a lot of people think. A lot of people think it should curve this way. It curves this way, all right? That's what gives it its strength. That's why engineers build bridges and dam walls and arcs. It's very, very strong. And remember, your neck has to be both very strong, but also very flexible. So that's why it needs this curve. So the red line is where the neck should be. The black dotted line is where the neck actually is. How many of you would agree that that's bad? Okay, it's completely bent the wrong way. It's bent like this instead of like this. And your spinal cord is sitting along the black dotted line here. And your spinal cord should be in this nice banana shape. Now, how many of you, if you took a banana and you bent it the opposite direction, what would happen to the banana? It'll break. Now, thankfully, your spinal cord doesn't break, but it gets put under a lot of pressure and stress. And if it's like that for ongoing periods of time, which it will be because that's that person's neutral posture, what do you think it's doing to the brain stress? Massive, okay? 24/7, sitting there all the time, generating stress hormones to the brain stress and causing the prefrontal cortex to shut down. You then multiply that out of years and decades, you can now see why people deteriorate. If only they just looked after their neck, which is the highway of communication between your brain and the entire rest of the body. It's such a crucial part. You can also see how the discs are degenerating here now. The discs are degenerating simply because it's so badly aligned that now you've got abnormal wear and tear there. So how many of you maybe have noticed, if you're sort of mechanically oriented, which I'm certainly not, I don't know anything about cars. Anyone ask me about a car, I freak out and I have no idea. I'm like, give me a human being, fine, but a car I'm dreadful with. Right? You just look at them and you get covered in grease, which is why I didn't go there. But how many of you have had a car and you keep getting a blowout in your tire, or you keep noticing your tires are always balding on one tire, on one part of the tire? You take it into the garage and they say, oh, well, no wonder, your wheel alignment's all shot. Now, how many of you would ask them just to replace the tire? Or how many of you would ask them, please fix the alignment and also give me a new tire? Fix the alignment, right? But when it comes to the human body, we change the rules. We think, well, just give me a new disc, just give me an operation to fix the disc, but don't change the alignment. Or just give me some sort of painkiller to try and suppress the pain, but don't change the alignment. It's bizarre, but your neck needs a good curve in order for it to function properly. So much so that most of your leading orthopedic surgeons now, when they're having to do surgery on a neck, will force the neck into a curve with rods and screws because they know how important it is to take the pressure off the spinal cord. Okay, probably many of you have had that scenario in the garden when you're watering the garden, you put a kink in the hose pipe, how much water comes out the other end? Well, that's basically what happens when this kind of thing happens to the neck. All right, it's like a kink in the spinal cord. So often neck pain is going to be as a result of subluxations from the cervical area right through to the mid-thoracic. Even mid-thoracic problems here will often contribute towards neck pain. Okay? If we just let it carry on, gravity will win the battle. All right? Hopefully not. Now this is an example of one of our patients who came through here. So this is a neck X-ray. So this is the front of the neck, and this is the back of the neck. So the red dotted line is where their spine is. The green curve is where they should be. All right? So you can see how the neck is bent like this, whereas it should be arced back like that. Now when this person came through, they came initially really because of headaches and neck pain, right? Common. But on further investigation, he also told me that he hadn't not had a cold or a flu in the last 20 years of his life, virtually at least every month. He was constantly carrying a cough, a sniffle, some sort of bug virus because his immune system was so poor. Every bug that went around, he literally got it. So he was constantly fighting off coughs and colds and flus. After 2 months of putting him on a care program just to get rid of his subluxations and to get the curve back in his neck, because that's what we specialize in, is long-term spine correction. No more coughs, no more colds. For the first time in 20 years, he hadn't got sick in the 3 months that he was with us. But his neck pain was gone and his headaches was gone as well. But he was also able to what do you call it, not leg press, deadlift more weight than he had ever been able to, because he also used to go to the gym a lot. And he couldn't believe that just how improving his neck helped so much more than just his neck pain and headaches. It helped all these other things as well. Even his legs work better. And that's the thing, because this is the gateway of communication between the brain and the rest of the body. And these are the typical kind of changes that people can expect to get with the kind of techniques that we use here, because that's what we've specialized in doing. All right, so if you're struggling with any of these kind of things, and sometimes it's just lost range of motion. How many of you have noticed that you actually now can't look in your blind spot anymore? You have to use the mirror. Yeah. Okay, or reversing a car is just hell because you can't turn your neck. All right. It could well be just because you've got subluxations in your neck. And the thing is, they're correctable. They really are. All right. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I'm blown away at how literally I'll have patients come in and they tell me that they've been struggling with this for 10 or 15 years. I said, why didn't you get this checked out ages ago? Well, they just think it's normal. It's part of getting old. It's not. Right? There's many old people who actually can turn their neck. All right? You've just got to look after your neck. So how do we correct the problems? First, you've got to break the bad habits. So if you're on your laptop a lot or phone a lot, main thing to do is just make sure the screen is up vertical. So I want big biceps, not subluxated necks. So lift your phone up when you're doing this. Don't do this. All right? Make sure that your PC, the screen, is sitting at the middle. Your eye should be sitting in the middle of the screen when you're sitting upright. Right? The middle of the screen, not 2/3, the middle of the screen. Because that encourages you to sit upright. Take regular breaks. Don't sit there for longer than 20 minutes without even just a 10-second break. Right? That makes a difference, just regular breaks. So how do you know if you have a subluxation? Well, there's really 4 objective criteria that we can use. Palpation. Chiropractors are trained to feel where the spine is stuck and not moving properly. All right? And we can feel straight away, oh man, it's stuck there. All right? Chances are it's a subluxation. It's not moving. It's that hard, rocky, blocked feel. That's what we trained 6 years to do. But just looking at your posture is going to give us a lot of clues. Postural abnormalities are normally the earliest indications of subluxations, because as the posture is off, so the spine and nervous system is off as well. So whenever you're looking at a person from the side, straight lines should pass through ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankles. When you look at a person from the front, is the head shifted? So you might see the middle of the chin is no longer in the middle of the chest. You might actually see it literally shifted, okay? As well as shoulder height being different. But at the end of the day, X-ray is the best way of being able to determine exactly where those subluxations are. All right, especially people who have a reverse curve in the neck, you cannot often see it just in the posture. They could actually have their ear directly over the shoulder, but their neck could be completely bent the wrong way. Now, commonly, they would have a forward head posture, but it does happen that the head's not even forwards. And the only way you're going to tell is with an X-ray. All right, so if we find subluxations there, the only way you can get rid of them are through chiropractic adjustments. You cannot get rid of them just through exercise, Pilates, yoga. They're not going to be able to get those bones into a better alignment and to a better position and to the stuck ones moving properly. You can move the ones that are already moving, but the ones that are already stuck and not moving, they need to be adjusted. But the great thing is it's gentle. Right? In fact, most people, where there's any slight degree of degeneration in the spine, we'd use an instrument, okay, which sends a rapid vibration, which is very fast, but it's low force. Low force, okay? But it's very, very quick, and that helps get the spine moving properly. And when the spine starts to move properly, guess what happens to the front part of the brain? It lights up like a Christmas tree, right? So your inflammation starts to get regulated better. Your immune system starts to function better. Your hormones start to get regulated better. Your autonomic nervous system starts to work better. And you can start to think more clearly, and you have a better memory. And essentially, it reduces stress to your whole nervous system. And when your nervous system gets less stressed, it starts to move into the healing repair mode. So all sorts of other things now start to heal, which are not even connected directly to your neck, right? We have people where I don't even touch their knee. Let's say they come with knee problems. We just work on their spine. Often the knee starts to get better simply because the spine now is moving properly. The brain now can regulate things properly to the knee. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, yes, sometimes there is an actual knee issue that we need to work on as well. But if you don't get the spine functioning properly, you're really on the back foot. Okay. So how do you know if you have a subluxation? Well, that's really what we can do. We can check very easily with either feeling your spine, looking at your posture, and X-raying it. A great doctor once told me, and I'll never forget this. He said, Neil, the biggest thief of health is procrastination. After all you've heard today, if you want to start to get healthy, today's your day. Now's your chance. Many of you just told me earlier on today that now's the best time to start to get healthy. Well, this is your opportunity, all right? And this will make a massive difference to you, I can tell you, all right? Because not only with the 20 years of experience that we've had, but when you apply these principles, you'll be amazed at how so many other things are going to start to unlock when you simply get the thing that controls your whole body working properly, your nervous system. And your spine houses it. And if your spine cannot move properly and it cannot be aligned properly, your nervous system just cannot function properly. For those of you who have any burning questions, I'll be here just for a few minutes. All right. Thank you, everyone. And that's it for me today.